Welcome to Bruce Bikes America, which shares my 16-week cycling adventure across the United States with this series of 15-minute videos. The indirect route starts in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and ends at the Santa Monica Pier. Most of the adventure will be solo, but some friends and family join me along the way. I take time for an occasional beer or two and will introduce you to many of the interesting locals and travelers that I meet. From DC to Pittsburgh, the route ventures off-road on the C&O Canal Towpath and Allegheny Passage. We then make our way across the Midwest with endless fields of crops and beautiful small towns. We'll turn south at Bettendorf, Iowa, where I grew up, to follow the winding path of the mighty Mississippi River. And of course, no cross-country bicycle tour would be complete without a ride on the legendary Route 66. Between historic towns, we pedal across breathtaking landscapes, vast ranch lands, and tribal nations, the painted and Mojave deserts, through suburban Los Angeles, and all the way to the Santa Monica Pier. So please join me as we explore the diverse and beautiful landscapes and people of the United States at 10 miles per hour on this epic cross-country bicycle adventure. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Now, let's hit the road with this episode. Heading out of Tucumcari. It rained all night. I was in a hotel, and it was kind of nice a little while ago, cool, but it's raining again. It looks like some pretty heavy rain up there. My good buddy Bill Rogers flew into Albuquerque this morning, and he's going to drive and find me and spend a day, have a beer, and spend a day or two in Albuquerque, and then I'll resume, but I'm just going to ride until he runs into me. It's probably a 2.5 hour ride, and then he'll pick me up. I'll take a 2-day break. Bill picking me up works out pretty well because it's 63 miles from Tucumcari to Santa Rosa with 0 services, and there's a fair amount of uphill, and the winds are projected to be headwinds for the next week, so 63 would be a long day like that. So hopefully I can get maybe 20-25 miles knocked out today, and that will shorten when I come back and finish the rest of the trip to Santa Rosa. And here comes the heavier rain and cold, and back on the interstate for a while. I can actually see my breath. It's been since last winter skiing, probably, since I've seen my breath. Back to the cargo strap thing. Should have gathered them on this mile. Would have got more than the 37 I got yesterday in 1 mile. Well, the rain stopped and I got off the interstate about the same time. The interstate was a little more unpleasant than normal because of the splash from all the trucks. But now I'm back to desolate Route 66. You can see the interstate off to the right, and the weather's clearing up. It's looking better. Okay, that's one way to get across the interstate. Slippery! Oh, all the water. Little wet feet won't hurt anything. On the north side of the interstate. Dirty water in the road. I've been off the interstate for almost 2 hours, and I've had 1 car go by. I'm pretty sure that's going to be Bill up there in the white truck. He's pulled over. Billy! I'll meet you in Albuquerque. What's happening? How much? Good to see you. Thanks for coming out. Next to the Montoya 1 mile sign. There's Billy. It's cold, I guess.
It's cold here.
I guess we should load this bike up. There's a beer waiting somewhere, but it sure as hell isn't right here because there's nothing around here. Living large in Albuquerque with Billy, who came to buy me some beers all the way from Newport Richie. And this beer was bought by Jim Julian. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Enjoying New Mexico with Brucey.
Here in Albuquerque at the, where are we?
Albuquerque.
Okay. Taking a day and a half off, and then he's going to take me back to my bicycle to ride back. I won't be here on my bicycle for 3 days.
And I'm going back to Florida.
So I've been talking to Javier for probably an hour about all kinds of Native American history and New Mexico history. Awesome, informative guy. He's going to tell us about
So, you know, I guess a lot of what I'm going to say today is about it's a genocide, right? The Native American genocide is the most prolific genocide in human history, and it's not in a single history book, right? You're looking at numbers as high as 400 million people over the course of 1492 to today. It's a genocide that's still counting, but not a lot of people know about it, and not a lot of people talk about it, especially in the United States. It's important to know about it, but it's not, you know, I don't think you should be ashamed of that, right? It's not like you personally did any of these things, but at the same time, you should know about it. You should educate yourself about it.
My friend here, Javier, is a down-the-road Apache.
My grandma
Apache, baby.
My grandma grew up on the reservations, and I grew up on the reservations.
Santa Fe is just sold as St. Augustine.
Fun trivia. So Santa Fe and St. Augustine were established in the same year and the same month, but nobody bothered to record the date. And so there's a huge argument, at least between our communities, between the St. Augustine and the Santa Fe communities, as to which is the oldest capital in America. And ultimately, it's up for you to decide. As I was born in Albuquerque, obviously it's Santa Fe, but these gentlemen here,
As Floridians,
And he says
wait till
that
I get St. Augustine.
Gentlemen. What are you talking to Bruce anyway?
yeah.
So I'm in Albuquerque, and on my bicycle I use an expired driver's license that they cut off the corner, and they wouldn't let me in. I don't know if they think I'm too young. I don't think I look quite that young, but they would not let me in the bar, and guess onward. Hey, back at the drop-off spot. Really brought me back. Time to start pedaling again. My good buddy from Florida, Bill Rogers, flew into Albuquerque on Sunday and came and picked me up. And we went into Albuquerque for Monday and had a great time, even though everything was closed in town. And then he dropped me off this morning, which is Tuesday, and it's back to pedaling. We had a great time though. Thanks, Bill. Well, I've had a slow leak for several days, and I have a problem with my axle. I can't get it out, and I have it on order in Albuquerque. And I've just been filling up the flat 2 or 3 times a day, and I just filled it up when Bill was here 10 minutes ago, and I go to ride and it's totally flat. So I'm gonna have to take that axle out, hope that it can get it back in. But the axle right here, all the attachment parts are gone, broken, so hopefully I can get it out and in. Well, the good news is I got the axle out okay. We were going to do it at the bike shop in Amarillo, but he was afraid that might have a problem and didn't have a new axle. So far so good, but it's not back together yet, but I think it's going to work. And there is the culprit. Little piece of wire stuck in the tire. All is good. I got the tire changed and ready to put my bike back together. Looks like the axle's going to hold up. All put back together and ready to start right where I started the day. There's a nice snake on the side of the road. So the mesas and buttes have been beautiful in New Mexico, and I had to look up the difference. So they are very similar. They came from plateaus, and they both are flat top, and they have steep sides or cliffs, and a mesa is wider than it is tall. So we have a mesa right here, and in the background a mesa on the left, and a butte is taller than it is wide. So you can see right in the middle in the background is a butte right next to the mesa, and another mesa off to the right. There's your geography lesson for today. And there's a nice view of the wide open vistas and the mesas of New Mexico. And this is the town of Newkirk. All towns are not cute little towns around a square, I guess, but they do have a great view. Population 7 in Newkirk. When Bill was driving me back to my starting point this morning, a truck in front of us had a backhoe on the back that was too high, and it hit the bridge, and the backhoe was laying on the ground when we got there. We didn't see it actually hit, but got there soon after, before the emergency vehicles did. And the bridge is pretty well damaged, and you can see they're working on it over here now. But traffic's going. I figured traffic would be stopped, but it's not. And there's a closer view of a mesa, specifically the Mesa Delgado, the Cat Mesa. A lot of these cattle guards in New Mexico, which are pretty good as long as you're on the right direction. Just make sure there aren't damaged ones like that can grab you. Onward. That is a beautiful sight if you're on a bicycle. Just a long, slow descent for as long as you can see. Well, that was a great 5 mile or so run, gentle downhill. Somehow I had a little bit of a tailwind besides, which I haven't had for days, so I don't know where that came from. So I'm to Santa Rosa, or the outskirts of Santa Rosa. I do get to pay for that downhill tomorrow when I climb out of the Pecos River Valley, but it was fun today. I'm in Santa Rosa, New Mexico, and I stayed at another old Route 66 hotel, the La Loma, which is fairly nice. They also have an RV park, which is $35 a night, or I could get a room for $47. So I took the $47 room, which is a pretty cheap price, but the RV park was a little bit high, and that's because they don't have camping rates because they think there's snakes out there and they don't want people camping. There is the Pecos River. I think now my 60-mile climb begins. I heard on the news that the mountain peaks of New Mexico had their first snowfall of the year. You can see the snow off in the distance there. Quite a ways off in the distance. So they did end up having a rest stop in New Mexico. It has no food, and the drinking fountain has non-potable water. I'm not sure why you'd have a drinking fountain with non-potable water, but I have enough without it. Today is the most daunting day of the trip so far, at least on paper. It's 59 or 60 miles from Santa Rosa to Clines Corner. It's almost all uphill. The land is just totally inhospitable. There's no place to stop except for one rest stop, which I just stopped at. And they had no food, and their drinking fountain had non-potable water in it. So it's fortunately, I was kind of afraid that I'd have the massive headwinds that I've had last week. Fortunately, I do have headwinds, but they're only 7 or 8 miles an hour and a little bit quartering off to my right. So it isn't too bad, and the weather's cool, and it's not too bad so far. So onward. Well, I had bad information. The Dairy Queen at 42 miles was not the first stop. There's a Phillips 66 at mile 32 and a half. So this has been the typical exit here on I-40 between Santa Rosa and Albuquerque. Nothing but an exit. Yesterday I had a lot of buttes and mesas, and not so much of that today. This morning I had this kind of topography, but a lot fewer trees and bushes. Now there seem to be a lot of trees and bushes. There it is, the Dairy Queen after 41 miles. I thought it was going to be the first stop, but there ended up being another gas station. But I made the long stretch. I've been trying not to eat any chain food on the whole trip, but I just broke that with Dairy Queen. But it's 3:30. I'm 42 miles in, so I've got about 18 miles. So that should be pretty easy to make before dark to Clines Corner, which is the RV park, which would be my destination. So it's a long day. I started at 8 and it's 3:30 now, but onward. The truck's on the side of the road. I got the German Shepherd as the driver. But he's a good driver. Isn't he a good driver?
That tire.
I made it to Clines Corner. It's 6 o'clock. It's a little over 59 miles and about 3,500 feet of climb. So it's been a long day, mostly a headwind. I think I'm going to, actually feel pretty good. I think I'm going to try to get to Moriarty, which is another 21 miles, because I hear it's mostly downhill. It's been a long uphill day. Also, the campsites here are just all gravel. They aren't very inviting, and apparently they don't rent to tenors. Maybe I could talk them into it if I tried, but I think I'll just move on. I did make it to Moriarty, which ended up being 82 miles, which is my longest ride of the trip. It was also 3,500 feet of climb over the first 60 miles, and then it was downhill for the last 20 miles, and that was by far my biggest climbing day. And there was a headwind, although it wasn't too bad, 7-8 mile an hour headwind, but I made it. I did forget I was in a new time zone, so when I crossed into New Mexico, so I ended up, but it was okay. I was on the interstate and things were pretty safe, I think.